is a long-term climate activist in Wollongong. She's a musician and she's a councillor at the Wollongong Council. Everybody give Mithra a warm welcome.
Thank you, Kaya. I was just reflecting the other day, given that the COP is happening in Glasgow, about the progress that we as a movement have made in the last decade or so. I remember 11 years ago I was playing music in a band and we spent a lot of time travelling around. The climate movement at that time had a lot of climate camps outside some of the biggest and most polluting power stations, and one of the power stations that we went to was the Hazelwood power station in Victoria. And I was pregnant and we drove through the night. I slept in the back seat, everybody else drove. We got there at dawn and we played music and did protests out the front of that power station. And that power station is now shut. It was a battle that we won. We also went to the Liddell power station up near Musselbrook. That power station, it was announced just before Christmas, will be shutting and it will be replaced with what was at the time going to be the world's biggest battery. We also went to the power station at Araring on the Central Coast, and just after the announcement about Liddell, there was another announcement that it would be replaced by an even bigger battery. And so these things give me hope that what we were doing 10 years ago made a difference and that we are winning. But I can hand on heart tell you though that over the last 10 or 11 years of all the things that I've done as an activist, being elected to that place across the road, the council chambers, has been the single most effective thing that I as an individual have been able to do, because I know and you know that we cannot solve the climate crisis by individual consumer choices. We can only solve the climate crisis through structural change, and structural change means political change. That is how we make structural change. And in the 4 years that I've been over there, we were able to declare a climate emergency. We were able to then set targets to reach net zero. They wanted to go on the go slow, they wanted to make it 2050. We were up there in the meeting and all of Wollongong turned out. I still feel incredibly moved about that evening. You could hear the drums beating from the street. You could hear them in the chamber as we were debating that motion. The chamber was so full that people couldn't fit into it anymore and they had to set up a TV screen downstairs so that people could watch the debate. And it was only because of those feet on the streets that we managed to bring those targets forward to 2030. And because we brought those targets forward to 2030, it meant that we also managed to introduce FOGO in this city, which means we've diverted all of our food waste that was going to landfill and was creating 80% of council's emissions is now being composted. That was because of those targets. It means that we were also able to sign a contract for 100% renewable energy, which we did earlier this year. They tried to suggest that we should do that in 2030 because our target was to reach zero by 2030. We moved on the floor of council to change that so that it would happen immediately. And from these things, I know that it only changes if you've got climate activists sitting around the table making sure that we make these decisions. And if anybody tries to tell you that climate change is above politics, they are wrong. Climate change is about politics. We have the technological solutions. We know how to make renewable energy. We know how to store energy. We know how to make electric cars. We know how to do these things. Humans are amazing. What we need is the political will to make them happen. And so we need to continue to build this political movement, and we need climate activists elected to every parliament, at every level of government, and we're going to keep trying until we do that, because we have no other choice. To have a planet that is livable, we have no other choice to keep going until we win. Thank you for being here today.
Authorised by Sylvia Hale for the Greens, New South Wales.